and good evening. It is 11 o'clock Mountain Time. I'm Tim Hansen, and this is National Disease. This is our second full show. Started late tonight, but we're going to go a little over. How's that sound? Anyway, hope everybody's doing well, and everything's been going well for everybody today. We're based here in Colorado, so we're under another little snowstorm going on right now, and it's very, very cold, and we're getting kind of used to that. I saw a meme today that I thought was really neat. It said, it's no longer winter, it's harassment. So it's kind of how it feels, too. It feels like kind of like a harassment. So I want to let everybody know that if you want to get a hold of us during the show, 1-866-263-0138. Again, my name is Tim Hansen. And the show is about a lot of things, anything that has to do with all the problems we're facing throughout the entire country, throughout this entire world. It varies from night to night, and tonight we're going to talk about illegal immigration, which is a hot subject today after the congressional hearing. And so I want to talk to people about that, and if you have input on it, make sure you give us a call. The rules of the show are when you call in, we don't cuss, we don't hate. We just bring our ideas to the table. We are a think tank, and it's a way for all of us to discuss the things that are important to us and important to this country and important to this world. So anyway, welcome again. Welcome to the show. And want to give a shout out real quick to Kevin, who's doing my engineering in another room right now and kind of watches things to make sure things are running smoothly. Because I am not a technological guru by any means, and if it wasn't for other people that have helped me get this thing put together, it wouldn't be working. So anyway, tonight, like I said, the topic is on illegal immigration. I want to know what your thoughts are on it, and I'm going to tell you mine. And this is my opinion, like it or leave it, but I do not get political. I am not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I am an American. I do not affiliate with any political party whatsoever. I believe that I am an American, a citizen of the United States, and I am a resident of a planet with 7.5 billion other people, and I share it with millions of other species. So I will not get on, I won't get into a subject of pro this and pro that. Everybody's excuse me. Everybody's opinion is valuable. Everybody has something that they want to discuss. Excuse me 1 second here. Swallowed something wrong. So here's my opinion on illegal immigration. First of all, I do believe that we need some kind of immigration reform in this country. That is a given. And that is something that both sides have generally agreed upon in the past. We need something. And when we sit there and talk about the numbers of people, and this is an accurate statement here because I do my research before I get on to find out exactly what it is we're talking about, and I do the fact check thing. And so when we talk about the controversy of family separations, and a lot of the political rhetoric in the last few weeks is focused on illegal immigration, I want to take a step back and take a look at some of the measures of illegal immigration in a larger context. And how many of them are families or unaccompanied children, and how have these statistics changed over time? And we need to look at the numbers. There were 12 million immigrants living in this country illegally as of 2015. That's 12 million illegal as of January 2015. And according to the most recent estimate from the Department of Homeland Security, or I say that is from the Department of Homeland Security, and estimates from two independent groups are pretty much the same. The Pew Research Center estimates the number to be at 10.7 million in 2016. And the Center for Migration Studies say that there were 10.8 million people in the United States here illegally by 2016. So that's about 3.5% of the U.S. population. And all three groups use Census Bureau data on foreign-born or non-citizens to adjust and subtract the legal immigration population. Now, they estimate that the growth of illegal immigration has slowed considerably, saying the population increased by 470,000 per year from 2000 to 2007, but it only grew by 70,000 per year from 2010 to 2015. The CMS found a decline in undocumented population, and specifically those from Mexico, of about 1 million since 2010. And the Pew Research Center found a peak of 12.2 million in the population as of 2007. And it's been declining since. All three of the groups find Mexicans make up the majority of the undocumented population. So 55% in 2015, according to the Department of Homeland Security. And the number and share of Mexicans among this population has been declining in recent years. Now, those living in the country illegally have also increasingly been here for 10 years or more. And the Department of Human Services says that 80% in 2015 lived in the U.S. for more than a decade, and only 6% came to the country in the last 5 years. I'm going to touch on this on my personal opinion for this, because I think part of the reform needs to start with a grandfather clause. If you have been here for, let's just throw a number, let's say for the past 5 years, or over 5 years, okay. If you have been here over 5 years, and you have a family here, you have a wife, you have children, you know what? They're here. They've established themselves. Let's make the citizenship process easier. Let's make it to where people can obtain that citizenship without years and years and years of waiting. Let's go ahead and get them to become a constructive part of our society. We have them accounted for. They are not in hiding anymore, and we can actually find out what the numbers are. So I say that we grandfather. Let's grandfather our illegal immigrants population. And like I said, I'm not saying that it has to be 5 years, but I'm saying let's grandfather it in. Case in point, I have a friend who was brought here as an infant from Ghana. And he wasn't even aware that he was brought here. He was an infant. We're talking carry a little baby. And his mother brought him here illegally. He had no idea that he was not a citizen. He had no clue. And he got in a little bit of trouble and ended up being arrested for this, and it was a charge that was eventually dropped. But however, he spent 3 years in detention because he was an illegal immigrant. They were going to send him back to Ghana. He doesn't know anybody in Ghana. He does not speak the language. He attended schools here. He attended college here. He has worked here with a fake Social Security number, not knowing that he was not a legal citizen. For 3 years of his life spent in detention, awaiting a hearing as to what his final outcome was going to be. And he still doesn't know what his final outcome is. He is out, but it's temporary. They could come and pick him up at any time and ship somebody who has been here his whole life. His friends are here. He has no family, nobody that he knows in Ghana, does not even speak the language. Try and picture yourself. You are swept out of your home. You are thrown in detention. You are shipped to a place you've never been. And you're told to fend for yourself because something happened. For him, it was 38 years ago, 35 years ago. That's wrong. We have immigrant families in this country who are still considered illegal, who have homes, they have careers, their children are going to school. Some of them have gotten out of school. Some of them have their own children and their own families. And it's not right, it's not fair, it's not morally correct. It is not what we do in this country to ship these people back or to put them into detention and send them back to some place that they haven't been for a very long time and have no ties other than, and they may have some family there, but that's beside the point. They've been here. They are, for the most part, and I'm going to say 99%, are valuable members of the community. They work and pay in taxes that they'll never even get to file a return on. So we need to do something about that. Now, how many people are actually crossing the border illegally? And there's no official measure of how many people succeed illegally in crossing the border, but authorities are using a number of apprehensions to gauge changes in the illegal immigration. Apprehensions on the southwest border peaked in 2000. This is apprehensions at the southwest border at 1.64 million in the year 2000 and have been declining since then. There were a total of 396,000, roughly 300, let's just say 400,000 in 2018. And those numbers, which came from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, are for fiscal years and date back to 1960. So I want to point that out. They go back to 1960. So, but just in 2018, approximately 400,000 apprehensions. That doesn't say how many successfully got to cross the border. Okay? That's a 76% decline in the number of apprehensions between the peak in 2000 and 2018. We can also look at how figures have changed over the past few years. Under the Obama administration, the yearly apprehensions on the southwest border declined by 35% from the calendar year of 2008. The year before President Obama took office through the end of 2016. And then when President Trump's first full year in office, the apprehensions declined by 43% for 2016 and 2017. So on a monthly basis, the apprehensions decreased significantly during the first 6 months of Trump's tenure. And the number was actually higher in November and the most recent month for which the U.S. Customs and Border Protection has published its figures than it was when Trump was sworn in. So we are seeing a decline. We have seen a decline in apprehensions. And we are sending people back. But the big question, or I say the big question, the big controversy right now is the children that have been detained in various detention centers, the separation of the families. And I heard the committee leader, this is kind of odd really, because I just had her up. But anyway, talking about, you know, the separation of children and their families and their parents. A lot of parents have been sent back without their children, and the children remain here, and the trauma that these children go through. My opinion, that's not what we do in this country. And do I want to see immigration reform? Absolutely. Do I want to see the stop of the influx of illegal immigrants coming to this country? Yes, I do. Do we need to build a wall? I'm up in the air on that. But we do need something. Even if it's better, you know, utilizing technology that we have available to us. But we need something. We have got to slow down this increase because it is an invasion. Not in the invasion sense of war, but it is an invasion. And we can't take this many people into this country and provide them with the services that they're going to need, the housing, the jobs, everything else. And I feel for these people fleeing their country. But if the majority of these people are men, maybe we would be better off to use some of this $745 billion military budget to start taking these men and training them to go back down and fight for the freedom of their own country and get it back to a place where they would want to be. You cannot blame a family. If it was me and my children, think about this. If it was you, your wife, and your children, and you were in a war-torn country, a poverty-stricken country, you are struggling to just eat periodically, would you not pick up that family and no matter what it took, try to protect your children? Because that's the number one thing, is we're trying to protect children, correct? Now, a lot of the men come up here looking for work. And I think most states have a farm workers association that help immigrants get farm-related jobs. But a lot of these people did come up and do come up just simply for the seasonal work, and then they go home. I worked for a company that we would bring 100 drivers in from Mexico to work in the country, and I think it was on like a 3-month visa, and then they would go back home. But the amount of money that they made here in 3 months would support them and their families for an entire year down there. I'm all for these programs. I'm all for having our, first of all, how many people do you know, make a list, how many people do you know are going to go out and stand in 108-degree temperature and pick vegetables? Not very many. And the Mexican population has proven to me over and over again that they are workers, they are hard workers, and they are taken advantage of in this country, which is not fair either. This is one thing that I believe that the minimum wage increases should affect anybody, no matter what job you're doing, whether you're here legally or illegally. You know, let's take I had a roof put on my house this last spring. And they showed up at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and my roof was done and completed by 3 o'clock that afternoon. That was tearing off 2 layers of shingles, resheathing the entire roof, and shingling it by 3 o'clock. 6 men. They worked their butts off. They didn't all take a lunch hour at the same time. They staggered their lunches. I was very impressed. And when they were done, you would never have known they were there. There wasn't a piece of scrap left in my yard. They're good workers. And if it wasn't for the immigrant farm workers coming up, you wouldn't have your vegetables and your fruits that you have. With the housing boom, for instance, here in Colorado, where it is just consistently on a huge rise, every place you look there is a building under construction, and most construction companies are very short. I saw a report about 2 or 3 weeks ago that one construction company said that they could hire 300 people today. That's how short they were on help to get jobs completed that they have started. So I'm not against our friends south of us in Mexico and Central America, but I am against the illegal immigration, and that's why it's called illegal. It's against the law. You are not supposed to be here illegally. So we need to put, it's not, you can't even blame them. We need to blame policies and procedures and laws that are either not enforced or are inadequate for this country in 2019. So what do? Where do we come to a happy medium? We can't hold these children forever. We need to get them back to their parents as soon as possible. We need to get them released to their parents. And I think at this point in time, we need to say somewhere in the central part of Mexico as they're coming up, stop, no more. And the ones that are up here, let's go ahead and be humanitarian and let them in. And then on a bipartisan issue is for them to come together with how are we going to secure our borders. Because I can remember clear back to President Clinton talking about it in the early 90s. And I remember Bush talking about it. And I remember Obama talking about it. But no one's ever done anything that I can see that has ever stopped the influx. And like I said, right now they estimate 12.5 million, or just say 3.5%, illegally in this country at this point in time, as I'm sitting here talking to you. 12 million. Illegal. That does not include the ones that are here legally with visas, the ones that came here and are attempting to get their citizenship and following all the laws and following the rules to get citizenship. This is the 12 million that are here illegally. So what do we do to help them? We certainly cannot round up 12 million people and send them back across the border. That is not even feasible. We do not have the manpower. We don't have the resources. But apparently they're contributing to our society, are they not? Because they're working for the most part. And I'm sure that some are sucking off of the system. But I don't believe the majority are. And I believe the majority are here for one reason and one reason alone, which is to earn a living. And that's what they come here for. Because I know a lot of people who are from Mexico, I have friends who are from Mexico. I have a few friends that are considered illegal in this country. Extremely hard workers. They're not looking for a handout. They're looking for an opportunity that they cannot get in their own country. But $745 billion, I love that number, $745 billion that we have in a military budget. And we're off over in Afghanistan and Syria and Iran fighting little wars and fighting, it's not a little war, it's a horrible war. All for one reason, corporate oil, that's it. Let's take part of this military budget. Let's get these guys trained to come into, let them in. Let's train them. Let's get them ready to go down by themselves without U.S. interference and fight to get their own countries back and change their own outlook. And that's another thing that I want to talk about. We have so many illegal immigrant men that are here out of that 12 million. Why not say, join our military, sign a 4-year contract, and then when you are done with that 4-year contract serving this country, we will hand you your U.S. citizenship and your wife and children, if you have them, and give it to them. Increase our military power with the people that want to come here and help get them their citizenship just by serving the country that they so desperately want to be a part of. And I'll bet you'd find out that 75 to 80% would gladly jump on that. We increase our military strength this way, and many would return back to their own countries with that knowledge and say, you know what? I'm going to take back my hometown. I'm going to take back my home country, and many others would join them with that. But we need to help them. You know, I often used to say that maybe we should just open the border between U.S. and Mexico if we could get rid of the corruption that's down there, but God knows we have enough corruption of our own here. How do we get rid of their corruption when our own government's corrupted? So, but imagine that if the border was like, remember how Canada used to be? You just showed your driver's license as you went across the border. There was no passport required. We had that arrangement with Canada. And you could go visit Canada anytime you wanted to, and Canadians could come down and visit the U.S. anytime they wanted to. It used to be that way with Mexico, too. You just went down. I've been to Juarez several times. And you just went across the border. And you came back with an ID. And that was it. So why not try and work towards that? When we're talking 100 years probably. But why not work towards that? Clean up the Mexican government, or not, it's not their government even. Clean it up. Let's help build their economy to where if I want to go buy a house in Mexico, I go down to Mexico and buy a house. I prefer warmer weather anyway. But I think we need to do things to try and help the people that are down at the border now. And we do need some kind of control. The drug issue is my biggest gripe. And I posted an article on Facebook several weeks ago about this. That the opiates, fentanyl, all the other drugs that are coming up from Central America, South America, Mexico, coming across our border, we need to get a stop put on that. We need to put a hold on that. But there's a market and demand. So as long as we have the demand, we're going to have the market. How do you get rid of the demand? You quit incarcerating people for drug problems and for being an addict and help them get cleaned up. The drug dealer, give them life in prison. You're caught dealing over a certain amount, you're going away forever. You're not allowed to be in society anymore. If you did that, you're going to see the demand drop. You're going to see the importing of it dropped. And eventually we would have it cleaned up. The war on drugs that we've heard about for, 30 years? It was a farce. There was no war on drugs. In fact, there's a lot of reports out there that tell us the CIA were involved in a lot of the drug trade, making deals with various South American countries. We need to get this cleaned up. But our number one concern right now is we have children. Picture your own children. Let's say that you have your own children right now taken away from you, placed in a detention center, crying for you, longing for you. They are being tortured mentally. And that's not what America stands for. That is not what we stand for. That is not being humanitarian. We were supposed to be the most humanitarian country in the world, with the greatest respect for human rights. And yet we are violating those human rights at our southern border. And the children are suffering. So something has to be done. And we have Democrats and Republicans fighting over which way to go. It could be very, very simple with the swift kick of a pin. And that would be, let's grant the citizenship to those that have been here for X number of years. If you were born here, it's granted, correct? So let's grant that to these people. We have people that don't know any different. They grew up here. They went to school here. They were brought here as little children. Some have lived here so long that they have their entire families are established here. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not humanitarian. But we do have to close the border. And we've got to make it harder for people to cross illegally. But we also have to make it easier to come here on political asylum and just with the desire to become an American, especially for our friends to the south. We're attached. We are attached. And if we don't have control, then it's not going to work for anybody. The number of family units apprehended has increased since 2013. And we have data for this. So it was 27% in 2018. That's a big number. It was only 3.6% prior to that. In the fiscal year 2013, according to the Customs and Border Protection data, there were 14,855 people apprehended on the southwest border who were part of a family unit. Those are individuals, including children under the age of 18, parents or legal guardians, and apprehended with a family member. The numbers increased significantly in the fiscal year 2014, and that was 68,445. Then it dropped the following year to 39,838 before increasing again in 2016 to 77,674. And the figure was similar in 2017, and it's gone up in 2018 to 107,000. Using the same time period that we have for these family units, the number of children under the age of 18 apprehended crossing the border without a parent or a legal guardian was about the same in 2013 as it was in 2017, so about 40,000. But it's fluctuated in the years between 2018, and that number was 50,000. Now, in 2014, the Obama administration dealt with a surge of unaccompanied minors on the southwest border, mostly because those fleeing violence and poverty in the Northern Triangle of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, and there were false rumors about permits being issued at the time. The number of apprehended and unaccompanied children, it rose from 38,759 in 2013 to 68,000 in 2014. The CBD data for unaccompanied children goes back further than the available statistics on family units. In the fiscal year 2010, the number of unaccompanied children apprehended was 18,411. That's unaccompanied children, 18,411. So it's about the children. And we can't break up family units. That's not right. They need to be with their parents. Okay, you have these big detention centers. What is the issue with allowing the parents to stay with the children? What is the problem with this? I mean, our own Health and Human Services cannot take care of the foster children in our own foster care system. It has been proven time and time and time and time again when children are found out to have been abused who are under the care of Health and Human Services in just about every state. And they go to investigate and find out the children have been abused or even killed. So our own Health and Human Services can't even protect our own children. How do we expect them to protect these children? And I don't think they are being protected. I think it's mental torture. We need to get these children back to their mothers and their fathers. We need to get them back as a family unit and let them deal with the things that are happening as a family. And like I said, there have been parents who have been sent back to their homeland without their children who are still here in the United States being detained. How many of these children will never get to see their parents again? How many? We're not working hard enough on this. Our government is not working hard enough on this. They're being blind to what they are doing to human beings. Keep in mind, these are human beings. Same as you, same as me. They speak a different language. The color of their skin is darker. They're human beings. We have organizations that ask for better treatment of animals than we get for treating human beings. Not that animals don't deserve any less. As far as I'm concerned, every species deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. But we're losing that dignity and respect. We're losing that part of America that made it so great, which is allowing people to have their dream and making it so difficult to fulfill that dream with idiotic, stupid, outdated laws that make no sense. That should not take 6 to 10 years to become a citizen. If you have come across the border legally, and we should set a cap. We should set a cap as to how many people are allowed to immigrate here per year. I don't know what that number should be, but we should set a cap. And if you're here illegally after a grandfather clause is put into effect and after we sit down and say these are the new immigration laws and this is how it's going to work and this is it by the Bible, then we need to set that precedent and say, okay, from this date forward, this is how it's going to work. But from this date back, we had problems within this country with immigration. And it was our own lack of paying attention to it that got us where we are. And it's not their fault. It's our government's fault. It's our fault that we put up with it. We elected these people into office that have ignored this and turned their eye for so long. And yes, you have one side that would really like to have those votes. As far as I am concerned, nobody who is here illegally against the law, illegally, should be allowed to vote. It shouldn't even be an option. Why will you let somebody vote that is here against the law? They're already breaking the law. So no voting. I read another article today to where the census, they're wanting to be able to ask the question if you are here legally or illegally, and there's such a big fight over that right now because there is a portion of the government that does not think that that information is necessary. I do believe it's necessary. And we need to make it aware and make public announcements to say that to answer the census question does not mean you're going to be deported and that information will not be shared with people that are controlling this. But that way we have an accurate number, or a close to accurate number, of how many people are actually here illegally, and maybe even how long have you been here. So let's go back to the children. What are we going to do? I think each and every one of us, if you're listening, need to start blowing up the telephones of your congressmen and senators, making phone calls, sending emails, writing letters, and telling them this is wrong. I don't care which side of the group you're on. Have some compassion here. They're children. No different than your children. No different than my grandchildren. No different than your grandchildren. They're children. And what we have done as a country is disgusting. This is not who we are. We need people to step up to this and make a change. And according to a December court filing in a case that was brought by the American Civil Liberties Union, there were 131 children still in custody, separated from their parents. And in more than 90% of those cases, their parents have indicated that they won't reunify with their children, or that the officials have found that their parents are unfit. And Department of Homeland Security has not provided any figures on how many children were separated from their parents in prior years. The ORR program houses the children in about 100 shelters in 14 states. In May, the Health and Human Services official told Congress that children had spent an average of 57 days in these types of shelters in 2018 before being placed with a sponsor who could be a parent or another relative or a non-family member. So about 80% or more of the unaccompanied children referred to the Health and Human Services over the last several years have been the age 13 and older. And this is according to Health and Human Services statistics. And about 90% or more have been from Honduras, Guatemala, or El Salvador. Customs and Border Patrol say 10% of those apprehended in the fiscal year of 2017 were caught more than once in a year, and that figure was 12%. So these are the ones that we've sent back, and they come back. They sent back and back. So that's showing at 12%. Now in 2017, and I don't know what we're up to at this point in time, but in 2017 there were 19,437 Border Patrol agents. And that number peaked in the fiscal year of 2011, and it was the most we've had was in 2011 at 21,444. So it's come down a little bit since then. But the number of agents is still much larger than it was about 20 years ago. The majority of the agents are assigned to the southwest border. So back in 2000, when apprehensions peaked at 1.64 million, there were 8,580 agents assigned to the border with Mexico. And when apprehensions were 303,000, there were 16,605 southwestern border agents. So we know the increase in border agents helps with the apprehensions, but it does not stop. It's just a small drop of how many people are coming over here. According to the Department of Homeland Security, it says that 340,056 people were removed from the United States in 2016. And a removal is the compulsory and confirmed movement of an inadmissible or deportable alien out of the United States based on an order removal. And then there are also returns, which are inadmissible or deportable, and immigrants who have to leave voluntary before a formal removal order is issued. And those returns total to 106,000 that year. So the peak combined removals and returns together was 1.86 million in fiscal year 2000. The same year that apprehensions on the southwest border also peaked. In fact, the bar graph of these statistics mirrors the graph on apprehensions. Generally, when apprehensions were higher, so were the removals and returns. And so we hear the one side saying they're coming over, we're sending them back, they're coming over, they're sending them back. It's a low number that this happens with. It happens, but what did we just say, 12,000? So we can keep sending people back, and a few are going to come back. 12%, I think that's what we just read. 12% are going to come back on an average. But we're sending people back that have been here for a very long time. We need to grandfather them in. And I think it's important as a nation that has been based upon immigration, has been built on immigration, to not fall backwards now. And these families need to be reunited. The families need to be reunited immediately. And it's very important that we get these children out of detention and reunited where they belong. And once we have accomplished this, we need something, whether it is Trump's wall or a picket fence. We need some kind of control across the border to regulate this and to have some control, because we can't take everybody from all over the world. We can't take everybody. But we could teach them how to take their own countries back. And I don't mean by sending in our military. We don't need to be in conflicts. But I think that we should be helping these people to be able to go back and take their country back and make their countries livable. So anyway, I'd like to hear from anybody that has an opinion on this. I do want to hear what you have to say. So give us a call. Our number is 1-866-263-0138. We've got about 20 minutes to take a couple of calls here, so I would really like to hear from some other people. Give me your viewpoints, because this is a think tank. And as our show progresses, and as we increase viewership, and as we increase listeners on the podcast, I hope that together we can take these ideas and do something to change something. So what are your thoughts? Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open. But I want everybody to think about this. Think about your own family. Think about your own children, your own grandchildren. And if it was you, if you were in that place right now, if your children or grandchildren were being detained and you were separated from them, imagine the agony, the horrible feelings that you would have. I know personally I would not be able to sleep. My health would go down very fast as a parent or as a grandparent. I would not be able to function knowing that the people that I set out to protect, the people that I love the most, are locked away from me and I can't be with them. Anything that you can throw at me, I can solve it with my family. But when you take me away from my family, I'm not going to be able to function. And that's the way these mothers and fathers feel right now. And think about when you were a child, because I'm sure that everybody at a point in time thought they lost their parents. Whether you were at a mall and disappeared, or you were out walking someplace at a park and playing, and all of a sudden you couldn't see them anymore. That gut-wrenching feeling that you felt as a child. And that's what we're doing to these people. People. Human beings. It's not right. It's not fair. It's inhumane. It's disgusting. This is America. And we don't treat people like that. Well, we have been. And it breaks my heart. Just got a text message here. So anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up tonight. I'm going to make this show here just a little bit shorter. I'm losing my voice. So have a wonderful night, and please make sure you watch us tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is Thursday, March 7th. We'll have a full show for you tomorrow night. I had a little bit of issue here with some stuff I wanted to show you on the internet, and I'm not sure why I'm not being able to bring it up, but I'll have that figured out tomorrow night. So anyway, please watch us again tomorrow night. I'm Tim Hansen. The show you're watching is National Disease, and I look forward to seeing you again some other time. So in the meantime, have a wonderful night, and God bless.